Hockey has been one of the sports that's really benefited from this growth. The hockey collectors have always been very passionate, but it's really grown in numbers, and there's a lot of great stars in the game right now. And the talent's kind of spread out through the whole league, which is a good thing. Um, Even though I'm in Dallas, we have a very competitive team here, and very passionate fan base. Um, but the NHL has done a fantastic job of promoting their game, really helped by Ovechkin setting the record this year. That was a moment when the whole sports world was focused on the NHL. So, like I said, when people start to look at the history and start to dive into it deeper, Montreal is one of those historic teams. They're like the Yankees or the Packers, where they're just steeped in history. So people do look to that. When you start to get into vintage, you want to have those top tier blue blood teams are the ones you're going to want to collect. Canada, we go to a lot of the shows in Canada, so we interact with hockey collectors all the time. And Montreal's just one of those teams, and sad that they haven't been able to bring a cup home. But sometimes that can drive the passion for the fans, especially in collecting. If they won the cup this year, people would focus on that team. But when you don't have a cut, I say this as a Cowboy fan, when you haven't won in decades, all you have to look back to is those good times. And so that's really where the vintage material comes in, and why there's a premium and stuff from those eras. Not taking a shot at Montreal, but when it's been so long since you've had the glory days, that stuff is just rare, because back then it was considered disposable. Like, we have that Jacques Plante jersey. It's the best Montreal jersey we've ever offered. It's photo matched to the Stanley Cup clinching game. Um, you know, the only reason that survived is because he wanted to keep it, or he gave it to somebody who was passionate. It would have been thrown out if it wasn't good enough to wear for the next season. Very common in that era across all sports was either send it down to the minors or a lower league, and it would just get worn until it was tossed out. It wasn't thought of that this is going to be worth tens of thousands of dollars later, and that's why those things have so much value. A good time for the sports industry. It's been steadily growing even since I was a kid. I started collecting in the late 80s, and it's just steadily grown. And then there was a big boom during the pandemic. Really, that came from new people coming into our industry, or a lot of people returning that did it when they were a kid or in college and then kind of gave it up. And they got back into it, and a real influx of younger people, teenagers and 20 somethings, which is always great for any industry, but especially collecting. 15 years ago when I was going to shows, often I'd be the youngest person at the show. And now you see teenagers walking around with their cases of cards. It's a good time to be a collector. When I was growing up, a lot of it was trial and error. You knew somebody at the local shop that would give you some tips, and you just kind of learned it on your own. But now, if you've got a phone, the information is out there. The biggest issue now is sometimes there's too much information out there. But, finding comp prices and researching authenticity has become a lot easier. And as far as memorabilia, the leagues have started authenticating the jerseys and significant balls and pucks and sticks and things like that themselves, which is a big help, especially on the modern side, which is one of the biggest areas of growth. When people start out collecting, especially kids, they want to collect who they're watching. They don't care about Jacques Plante or Gordie Howe or Wilt Chamberlain or Joe Namath. They want to collect the players they're watching right now. And then if they stay in it, then you start to go back and learn the history and get into that vintage stuff. So as far as authenticity, there's a great base in place from all the leagues that want to make sure what's out there is authentic. rarity is always an important factor in collectibles. And it's, of course, tragic when a city loses a team, but then that limits how many items are available from that team. And especially when you get a little further away, like my kids talking about the expos, that's like talking about ancient history, so it does have this mystique about it and that really appeals to collectors. And of course, an important part of collecting is nostalgia. And those old teams, like here in Texas, the Houston Oilers is very popular for collectors. Exact same thing, something that was so important and crucial to a city and then just disappeared one year and kind of goes into the pages of the history. But collecting is what lets it be rediscovered and celebrate that history.